Okay, in this video, it's part 2 of the cost of living in Charlotte, North Carolina, compared to areas like New York City, LA, Washington, DC, and Chicago. And in this video, we're going to talk in more detail about housing payments, mortgage payments, property taxes, and what percentage of your income is actually needed to make those payments relative to these other markets. All right, so if you haven't watched the first video, I would check that out as well. We talk about overall cost of living, some other details like sales taxes, income taxes, median home price and income levels there. Property tax rate is definitely important, right? Property taxes factor in to your monthly payment, just overall affordability. The most expensive on this list today is New York City. No surprise, right? New York City is just notorious for having really high taxes. I used to live in upstate New York. I can tell you that property taxes there are just incredibly high. Now, it's important to understand how these tax rates work because they're not taxed on the sales price. If you buy a home for $100,000, you're not paying property taxes on that $100,000. You're paying it on the tax assessed value, which is done by the local municipalities. Most of them have to do a reassessment every 8 years, but they can do it sooner. And I think they do it have done it every 4 years here. So they can reassess your property. Now, the assessed value is almost always lower than the market value or what somebody would pay for it on the open market. Now, typically here, a home may sell for $500,000. If it's a newer home, it's going to be assessed, at a higher amount. That assessment could be $380,000. Could be less, it could be more, it could be 400 and change. Just understand that it's a lower amount. In New York City, it throws people off because the tax rate, and if you live in New York City, give me some more insight on this because New York City is a whole different animal than upstate New York is. From my research, it's 20% tax rate. But the assessed value, on an $800,000 home, you could have an assessed value of $45,000. The dollar amount is still really high, but it's not based off of $800,000 value or $700,000 or $600,000. It's just really low assessed values there. And so that could be way off on that, but I have been able to actually, what I did was I looked at the actual tax bill amounts for properties for sale. And so that's what I'm using for these amounts today. So for example, on a $785,000 median home price in New York City, that monthly tax payment would be $1,167, per month. That's really high. Second on this list for tax rates is going to be Chicago. They have a 1.91% tax rate. LA, 1.1%. Washington, DC, 0.85%. And then Charlotte, we have the lowest. It's 0.76%. So what that means is on a $100,000 assessed value here in Mecklenburg County in the city of Charlotte, you'd be paying roughly $760 worth of annual property taxes. That's annually, really low amounts. There's other details that go into this. They have a millage rate. I don't want to get into too much of that today, but just know that the Charlotte tax rate is going to be, the property tax rate is going to be the lowest out of these cities today, and it's below the median property tax rate of roughly 0.84%. as well. So to give you the monthly tax payments based on the median home prices for each one of these areas. New York City, I mentioned $785,000 there. You'd be paying $1,167 in monthly property taxes. We budgeted out monthly for when we qualify you for a mortgage payment. All right, so LA on a $931,000 home, you'd be paying roughly $375 per month. I have found that can vary an awful lot there. So I've heard actually that payment be closer to $900 per month. So if you live in LA, tell me, I could be way off on that. Washington, DC, $525 per month. And then you have Chicago, you'd be paying just a $378,000 home. You'd be paying roughly $550 per month for monthly property taxes because their tax rate's so high there. And then you have Charlotte here. So on a $425,000 home, you would be paying roughly $250 per month for property taxes. For a quick mortgage payment calculations, for just this example, I'm just going to make it simple. We're just going to assume 20% down on these home prices, and you're doing a 30-year fixed loan at 6.35%, which is the average conventional rate right now. So the total monthly payments here, from most expensive to least expensive, I'm going to go in the order I just did. New York City is going to be the most expensive so that total payment, even though it's not the highest sales price, because LA has this highest sales price, New York City would have a total monthly payment of $5,071 per month. Now, LA would be second on the list, total payment of $5,005. Washington, D.C., total payment $4,130. And then Chicago, $2,480. And then Charlotte, we would be $2,364. And now these payments, when I say total, I'm really just referring to the mortgage payment, the loan payment, and then plus property taxes. Now, keep in mind, you're going to have other expenses. You're always going to have homeowners insurance that you're going to need. If you're in a flood zone, you would need flood insurance. If you are in an HOA community, you're going to pay a monthly HOA or condo monthly fee. And so like for neighborhoods here, because the Charlotte region is so young and fresh and new, a lot of our homes are built after the year 2000. And if it's in a neighborhood, you are going to be paying an HOA fee. It may not be that much. If it has a pool, it might be a little bit more, but for some of these, 20-plus-year-old communities, even with a pool, maybe it's $300, $400, or $500 per year for a single family home. If it's a townhome or a condo, you could be paying, $250, $350 plus per month. Just keep that in mind. I'm not giving you the total monthly payment. And then if you put less than 20% down, there'll be possibly things like mortgage insurance, which protects the bank, not you, stuff like that. So I just want to give you an idea of affordability from a general standpoint of like the things that really matter across the board, like property taxes and home prices on average. Now, if you notice on this list, Charlotte, we have a higher median price. Like in that example, the price was roughly $47,000-ish, $47,000 higher than Chicago, but our payment would be lower. And that's because our tax rate is lower. So Illinois is a state that has a very high property tax rate. And so that's why this stuff really does matter. It helps with affordability for sure. Now your income and everything obviously factors into this, right? And so what I did in this next breakdown is I look at the median household income and then look at the payment. I say total payment for this video, but I really just mean mortgage and property taxes. And then what percentage of the income is needed to make that payment, right? So we'll go most expensive first here. Surprise, it's New York City. Median household income here after adjusting, and I took out the state income taxes from the median household income. To recap here, New York City median household annual income is $145,000. We take out the state taxes, and I think for New York City, it's 8.875%. Then monthly, that would leave roughly $11,071. And then the home payment there of $5,071. That housing payment of $5,071 is 46% of your adjusted household monthly income. That is a pretty high amount. And I actually misspoke here because looking at this chart here, it's actually LA that has the most expensive percentage of your household income is needed. So LA is actually 64% of your household income is needed to make that housing payment. And that's because the LA median household income is lower than New York City. It's $98,000 per year. The second most expensive on this list is Washington, D.C. Roughly 49% of your net adjusted income each month is going to be needed to make a median household mortgage payment with taxes and property taxes included. And then you have Chicago, 42% of your income is needed to make that mortgage payment. And then Charlotte is 34%, or the lowest on that list. Housing payment of $2,364, with property taxes in there. And that's based off of our median income of $86,000 per year per household here. And we take out that 4.25% state income tax. That leaves you roughly with $6,862 per month to work with. That comes out to about 34%, to make of that is needed to make the mortgage payment of $2,364. So a lot of numbers there, but hopefully that makes a little sense. But essentially know that affordability is going to be the most in terms of mortgage payments here in Charlotte compared to these other areas. Now, when we look at it compared to a national, statistical level, the national affordability that's needed there is roughly 38% of net adjusted income to make the mortgage payment. So we're below the national median here. Now everything still feels expensive. Let's face it, like mortgage payments have been really high, especially for the past, 3-4 years here, because the interest rates have been so much higher than they were in the past. And so hopefully the rates will continue to go down. Right now, they have come down some. We're in October 6.25. They're down in the lower sixes. They went down to 6.25%. They've come up a little bit to 6.35%. But if we can get down in the mid fives, I think that's going to open up things a lot for people. All right, so that's a pretty good breakdown, I think, of housing affordability, what it really costs for you to own a home based off your income levels in Charlotte, North Carolina, compared to some of these other markets. In this next video, I'm going to talk about 13 of the most commonly paid expenses. 2 of those actually mortgage and rent. So it's really 11 of the most commonly paid monthly household bills. And that is going to be things like auto payments, utility bills like electricity, gas, water, sewer, trash, recycling, even like auto insurance. There's a website that breaks all of this down for us, and it compares it to some of these other markets. And I think that will be also helpful for you if you're thinking about moving to the Charlotte or North Carolina area at all. And I also have one of the most commonly missed property taxes that I haven't talked about yet, but that a lot of people aren't aware of. I wasn't when we moved here. And so stick around in the next video for that. And thanks for watching.